Welcome to another episode of the Lift Church podcast. We are so blessed that you're joining us again today. I just want to encourage you to follow along with us, and I say this every single episode, but you can go to everywhere that the podcasts are given out, whether that's in Apple or Spotify, and you can subscribe and follow along to this podcast. And I encourage you to go to the YouTube channel where you can see us and watch the video of every single episode. And we are in season 3 of the Lift Church podcast. And it's been a privilege already to chat with a number of amazing people in our community. And that's what the whole season is about, is talking to people in our community that we partner with that are making significant and exceptional change in the community. And today is no different. I am privileged to sit with the very new executive director of the Twig, and it is Nicole Britton. Now, I'm going to address this right out the gate because it's too funny. We did not match on purpose. You came walking in, and we're wearing the same color tones, and I think it's just simply because great minds think alike.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
I love it.
We're going to talk about the Twig today. We're going to look good doing it, and I'm just going to start off with just a very easy conversation with you. As everyone knows, my heart for foster and adoptive care. And so the Twig is an intimate part of my family. My wife worked there for a season. And so I would love for you just to introduce yourself. I gave a small title intro, but I didn't give any type of bio to who you are. But share with anybody that might not know, who are you? And then let's dive into the Twig and all that it's doing, has done, and will be doing in the future. We'll kind of chat about that. So introduce yourself, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Absolutely.
So I'm Nicole Britton. My husband and I live here in Venice. We grew up here. We both graduated from Venice High.
Nice. That's a rare thing.
Yeah. He was on the 2000s football
he's a
championship
champion.
team that they just won again. So
Yes.
I have to mention that.
Yeah.
But we have 4 biological children that are 19, 18, 13, and 10.
Wow.
And we have a adopted son who's 2. And we've been fostering for about 5 years.
Amazing.
So in those 5 years, we've had 15 kiddos placed with us.
Wow.
And my passion for foster care follows me into my professional world
Yes.
as the executive director of the Twig. So I started at the Twig as a volunteer when it first opened in 2016. Just thought, I have a heart for foster care. What can I do? Volunteered, helped with the kiddos, helped with fundraising. And then I was very blessed to be the first paid employee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, I was the director of development, but I wore a lot of hats back then.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I was the only employee, so I was answering the door, answering the phones, talking to donors, talking to volunteers, doing all the things.
You were everything.
In a little closet of an office.
The startup.
Yeah. So that was really fun to start. But then from there, we started to grow at the Twig and then just grow in our family where we were, I was volunteering with kids in foster care and then I was working with kids in foster care. And it really became apparent to Matt and I that we could do more.
Yeah.
We had the space in our house and the space in our home to start fostering ourselves. So we got our foster license. Our first placement came in April of 2020, right during the pandemic.
Okay.
Fun times.
Yeah.
But that's the world of foster care. You just never know what's going to happen. So I am honored to be now the executive director and have a staff of 7. We have a volunteer base of 200 and we're serving around 400 kids a month.
Wow.
So just a little bit about those kiddos. They are all kids in foster care. They can shop completely free of charge in our boutiques where they get clothing, shoes, pajamas, underwear, all those necessities, but they're also being poured into and just given love and support.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people aren't even familiar with the model and how it works. I think it's important I'd love for you to chat a little bit more about that, because one of the things that you all do exceptionally well is you create, and you call it's a boutique. It's a place that it doesn't feel like they're getting a lesser than anything. They are being poured into and really valued. And so you guys designed the whole boutique. Maybe share where are your boutiques, And then walk us through what is that experience like for the kids? Because they come in and they're really doted on. So do you mind sharing a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So I'll start with a little bit of the history of how it was created,
That's
actually.
awesome.
So Diane Weed was our founder.
Yeah, we love
She's
Diane.
and she's been our volunteer executive director up until last month when I took on that role. But what happened was Diane and Lloyd Weed, they have 4 daughters, and their youngest they adopted out of the foster care system when she was just a baby. So when she became a teenager, and all those clothes you're buying teenagers,
I do.
they started to think, gosh, what if we hadn't adopted her? If she was still in foster care, where would she be shopping? But more importantly, who would be pouring into her? Who would be giving her love and support? So Diane kind of looked at what was out there. And there's foster care clothing closets, but there's really just boxes of stuff that kids are rummaging through, and there's no dignity.
Yeah.
So that for her was she wanted to create a space where there was dignity, where kids could come in and just feel like a normal kid. So she made these beautiful boutiques that look like a normal children's store, just happen to only be open for kids in care, and everything happens to be free.
Yeah.
So it's set up like a normal kid store. There's different departments, different sizes. The kids can come in and choose what they want. They're not just getting handed something to cover their bodies. They're choosing the items.
They actually get to
they
shop.
They do.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so we have dressing rooms. They get to try everything on. They just have so much fun when they're in there too. And that's part of the good part of it, right?
Yeah.
It's not just clothes. It's a whole experience for them. So we opened in Venice in 2016 in a tiny little place in Pinebrook Plaza, the corner of East Venice Ave and Pinebrook.
Okay.
And it was a tiny spot at first. 8 children shopped that first week.
Wow.
And then over time, we were growing and growing. And in 2017, we moved into the space we're in now, which is the same plaza, but 3 times the size.
Yeah.
And then in 2021, we opened our second location in Bradenton.
Wow. I love it. Yeah, my wife and I, of course, have had the privilege of shopping and coming into those moments. How do foster families find you? Do you go and you find them, or do they find you? What does that partnership or that transition look like? How does someone come and be a part of a shopping day?
Yeah, so there's a few ways.
Okay.
The foster care community is pretty close.
Yes, they are.
As a foster parent, it's hard what we do. It's not always easy. So we rely on each other a lot.
Yeah.
We have a great community here where people can come together as foster parents and learn from each other. There's lots of ways to do that. So a lot of people are telling other people about us.
Yeah.
So, we hear of a new foster family. I'm excited to tell them about all the support here, and I'm going to tell them all about the Twig. We also do partner with the licensing agencies. So we try to go in and talk with the classes when people are getting licensed so they know you're not alone. When you start taking those placements, come see us and we'll get you what you need.
Yeah.
And then, believe it or not, some kids, they transfer homes quite a bit when they're in care, and they'll tell their new foster families, hey, it's shopping day at the Twig Saturday.
That's amazing.
You need to bring me, because they love it. They look forward to it.
So it's a lot of word of mouth. It is a tight-knit community. My wife and I, we've, of course, done foster and adoptive care, and very proud to be in that community and be a part of it. And actually, my wife is helping with a child right now as we get the chance to talk. You coming into, you're now the executive, and you just spit off the facts about your organization so well. I'm so proud of you. I wish I was like that. You're sharp. But you come in, you serve in the organization. So you are from the genesis, a part of this thing. You get in, and now you're a foster mom, and now even an adoptive mom. How does that experience shape you as an executive director? Because as you mentioned, it's not easy. Maybe walk us through what it's like being a foster mom and an adoptive mom, and then how that shapes your heart to see this organization become the best that it can be.
Yeah. So, we say often the clothes are obviously very important. These kids are coming into care with nothing. They're coming in the middle of the night with no clothes, just what's on their back.
Yes.
It's a very real thing. So the tangible items, those clothing, are super important. But the space we've created at the Twig is just as important.
Yes.
We have foster families that are connecting with each other and just spending that time in there where they can just hang out and talk. We have kiddos that see other kids that are going through similar scenarios. So I still shop at the Twig.
Yeah.
I'm the executive director, but I am a client as well. And so one thing I love to do is I could shop on a Tuesday and just get clothes for my kid very easily, but I intentionally don't. and I go in on a Saturday and I stand in line.
That's so
just
good.
like the other families. I interact with the volunteers and let them help find stuff for my kiddo.
Wow.
My favorite part is when they don't know who I am.
Yes, that's a win.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But it's really, for me as executive director, I don't want to just be that overhead. I want to be right in there. I want to see what's happening.
Yeah.
I want to be with the family. So I have a unique way to do that.
Yes.
I read a book recently about Walt Disney and a lot of the things he did at Disney World.
Okay.
And that's one thing he encouraged all of his employees was you wait in line when you go get your food, just like everybody else, because then you learn about the experience.
Wow, that's
so
cool.
sometimes you're hearing stories from other foster families that I wouldn't hear those stories if I didn't just come in. But being around the community it's really important. Hearing the voices, hearing what they're going through, hearing what they want. What more can we do for you? If I'm not right there with those families, I'll never know.
I pray people are hearing that, because that's an exceptional leader for you. And just, we're friends, but I'm also going to tell you, that's exceptional leadership to be someone who, because I work at a church, but I tell the team, I love coming to church here. Yeah. So if you can't enjoy the thing that you're leading as someone who's consuming whatever that may be, then, you might not be the right person to lead it, but you're the right one, because you're coming in and it's not just something you're leading, it's something you're partaking in. Mm-hmm. And so this past week, I was chatting with Joey, one of our pastors on staff, and his wife, Kim, works with you. Yes. He helped serve in the nursery here. And so he has one little girl, of course, and he's telling me this story that he went in and served in the nursery, but it is so eye-opening. To go into these different spaces. A lot of people will see us up on a platform, but he was able to really grab a greater ability to understand what it's like to serve in those spaces. You know what he said? He made a joke. He said, we're going to start preaching shorter sermons from now on because whoever has to sit in there with these babies, God bless you. He was in there asking for more budget approval to bless the volunteers for the nursery after serving one time. So that's where my mind was going as you're talking about those things. It is good to get in the trenches and be a part of the thing that you're doing. With my wife and I, we had the experience where we had foster kids brought in and they just had the clothes on their back. Yeah. And now we didn't get to keep them long enough to be able to come into the Twig, but we've had many of those experiences. Some people who are not in this world can't really wrap their heads around this. Mm-hmm. They don't understand that a kid is brought in the middle of the night because he or she is brought from a bad situation with pretty much whatever they're wearing or maybe whatever's thrown in a bag on the way out the door. And so what you and the Twig are providing is something I think is extremely special. I want to talk more about the Twig, but I also just want to talk about foster and adoptive care in general. My heart for that, and sitting with you as a friend who also has a deep heart and burning and passion for that. How, if you were to encourage people to participate in this, how would you do that? What would you go about sharing with them from someone who cares about it, to the extent that you're fostering and you've adopted an amazing little boy into your home? We need more people like you. So if we needed more people like you and you have a chance to talk to people, what would you say? What would be some suggestions? How would you pour your heart out to get them maybe to step into that arena?
I think people get scared. It seems overwhelming, right? Like, I want to help kids in foster care, but gosh, that feels like a lot. But you can tiptoe your way in. Yeah. Like I said, I started volunteering with the organization before I ever thought about becoming a foster parent. Yeah. So what is it? Can you buy a pair of shoes for a teenager who's in foster care? So can you buy some underwear for a kiddo? I mean, we give out about 4,000 items every single month.
Wow.
So people giving to us, you're blessing the life of a child in foster care simply by buying a tangible clothing item. Yeah. That's one way. Yep. Maybe it's volunteering your time. We have about 200 volunteers within our organization that are doing so much with these kids. Some of them like just, sorting through the donations, hanging clothes, being that behind the scenes person. Yeah. Other people want to be there with the kids holding babies and talking to a teenager about the trauma in their life. There's so many ways to do that. Yeah. And then once you start dipping your toes in a little bit, maybe you realize, I can do this. And maybe people can become foster parents once you get into that world. I think sometimes people just don't realize that it's here. Yeah. There's kids in our church that are in foster care. You can go to the school across the street. There's kids in foster care. Yeah. People just don't realize it. There's around 1,200 kids in our general area in the foster care system, and that's tiny babies all the way up through teenagers.
You're so good with stats. Do you know how many like homes are open or available? Like, is there a gap there? I feel like there is.
There is a gap.
Yeah.
I don't know those numbers off the top of my head, but there is a gap.
We need more homes. So, okay. Yeah, I think it's the same thing my wife and I have experienced. We didn't recognize, because here's what, and I'm just being very candid in a conversation. It's like, you think it's a retirement community, right? So you go, okay, well, there's not that big of a need. If there's, well, Nicole's doing it, Mike and Megan are doing it, Nicole, Matt, it's okay. Well, they got enough. There's not enough. There is so much more need than there is people providing for that need in a host of different ways, let alone donating to like things like the Twig or being respite care, things like that. So, okay, continue on. I like that. Like dipping your toe in is one of your suggestions. Any other thoughts on how do they get started in this?
Talk to someone, right? I mean, here, if you go to Lift Church, there's several people
if you talk to Nicole or my wife, you'll be signed up that day.
But, just talk. It's not that scary. And I think when it comes to actually fostering, people a lot of times discount themselves and think that there's reasons they can't that are not true barriers.
Yes.
And, my heart going into foster care was about the kids, but it's also about those bio families.
So good.
I have such a heart for seeing reunification happen, and people so many times say, oh my gosh, I could never give them back. How do you do that? And I tell them that's my favorite part.
Yes.
You can watch a mom or a dad pull things together and be able to be reunified with their biological child. That's beautiful.
Yes.
And then sometimes we get the privilege of staying a part of their lives. I mean, we have a little guy who comes to church with us quite often, and he has been back with his mom for about 3 years.
Yeah.
But we are still such a part of his life that he's at our house a couple times a week.
Wow.
And you just never know where it's going to take you.
Yeah.
These tiny little things that maybe a kiddo's coming into your house for a short time. Maybe they're not just a short time. And maybe it's about that kid. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's about their family. I mean, we've had some beautiful stories happen that just never would have happened without foster care. Our little guy that I just mentioned, his mom is someone I never would have been friends with. We're very different people. But because of a child that we both love, we are very much a part of each other's lives, and we've become family, and we're her support system. It's just don't be too scared to jump out and see what's out there.
It's now, of course, I'm a pastor, so I'm going to talk through the lens of those things. It's so Jesus-like.
Totally.
Let alone it being loving the kids, right? Kids, the scriptures teach about orphans and widows. And so that's just a natural part of good living like Jesus. But when you have the heart to see those that are going through some of the most broken seasons, people that we naturally in our comings and goings would not go, okay, that's someone who would be in my circle. But the Lord uses things like this to put us in those spaces, in those seasons, for the right time and the right moment to where now, and as you've mentioned, which is a great story, by the way, and you kind of say it so fast, the fact that you're still in that family's life that's a big deal.
It is.
Because they were going through some broken moments, difficult challenges, etc. However you define that, you had an opportunity to swoop in and be there to support. And now you have because if you're still in their life, you have influence. What a gift to be able to have some influence into people's lives that, and what I know of you and Matt, is very godly and kind and loving. And that's part of me as someone who's very passionate about this as well, is I think that it deserves our effort. Those people, beyond even just the kids, the bio parents deserve that effort, deserve that support and that love. And yes, there's a tension, as you address, and a lot of people focus in on that because you have to give the child back. But there is something beautiful to know that the Lord used you in the midst of helping to mend something that was originally broken, right? Okay, so let's talk about people volunteering and joining the Twig a little bit. How do they get involved with you? What does that look like? You have 200 volunteers. What does that even mean? What does a volunteer do? How many volunteers serve a day? And I know you know all the numbers, so it's like you're exceptional at understanding your organization. But What does that look like volunteer wise for the Twig?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things. They do
Okay.
a lot to sum it up.
Yeah. Don't know. Take your time. I want to hear.
We have shopping days on Saturdays.
Okay.
So the first 3 Saturdays of every month there are shopping days for kids in care, and no appointments needed. We know foster parents' lives are busy. There's lots of appointments.
Okay. Just come
So
in.
they can just come in.
Okay.
So we have volunteers that are there during those shopping days that are personal shoppers with the kids. There's volunteers that are checking people in, that are hanging all or that are folding all the clothes and putting them in the bags for them. There's a lot that goes into our shopping days.
Yeah.
But we're talking 400 kids a month are what we're serving. Wow. So on a Saturday, we might serve anywhere from 100 to 200 kids.
Wow.
So the store needs to be restocked by the next Saturday.
Sure.
So there's a lot of volunteers that are doing that part as well.
Okay.
We have volunteers that are stocking the store, making sure it's ready. We have our warehouse, which is offsite, that we have about 70 volunteers a week that are in there processing donations, hanging, tagging, doing all the things.
That's where
to
my
make
wife
it work.
works, so I'm very familiar
Yes.
with the warehouse.
There's a lot of little details at the Twig too that are
Yeah.
very intentional, but they're small details.
Okay.
So we pretty much most of our donations are new, but we do accept used donations. But what we do is take tags off everything and put our own tags on every piece of clothing.
Yep.
A few reasons. One, the kids don't know if it's new or not. 2, it has our logo on it and our sizing, and we have words of encouragement on there.
That's so cool.
And they're just little words that talk about Jesus, and they follow those kiddos out our doors.
Yeah.
We have brown paper bags that when they're finished shopping, we fold and we put it in the bag, and we put tissue paper on top. It looks like if you're going to a boutique and you're going shopping.
That's what I wanted people to hear, that like the intentionality of their experience when they come goes clear down to the tags.
It does.
Yeah, that's so great.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So there's tags on those bags too. It say you're 100% beautiful, 100% unique, 100% God made.
Oh,
So again, these little details that don't seem like much, but they really
Yes.
do mean a lot to these kids. So our volunteers are a lot of what makes that happen. All these little things couldn't happen without the support of our volunteers.
That's exceptional.
So they do a lot of the work. But then, the people donating are so important to us too. Our donors here in the community, whether they're donating their kids' clothes that they've grown out of that are still in great shape, or they're going on our website and shopping off our wish list. We have financial donors who help us pay our rent.
Yeah.
But every little piece of that means so much. And we live in a unique community where people want to help. Once they hear that need, like I said, people don't know kids are in foster care, but once they learn about it, they're like, gosh, what can I do to help that? And there's so many ways to do that just within the Twig itself, whether that's donating tangible items, donating your time, donating financially, all of those things make us work and let us do what we do.
Yeah. And well, you guys are very good logistically with all of that. Like being a part of behind the scenes because my wife, and then knowing that you continue to improve every single day. The organization really does come in and vet those items really well, very good at sorting, very good at making sure that the kids have a great experience and are loved on. The details of the heart of the organization to put those things on tags, again, is not small. Like, that's a big deal. The small things is where you show, if you're talking about, you mentioned Disney, the details. Disney is in the details, and that's what makes for such a great experience. The details that the Twig provides. And as a nonprofit, serving those kids is exceptional. When someone's donating clothes, how does that go? And then I want to talk about the website and how they can look at that. But there's a drop-off day or a donation day. Is that how that works?
Correct. Yeah. So each location has one drop-off day a month.
Okay.
So here in Venice, it's the 4th Monday of every month from 4 to 6.
Yeah.
In Bradenton, it's the 2nd Tuesday of every month, 4 to 6. And we have volunteers that'll come grab everything from your car. You can just pull up. But again, it's either stuff that you just have at home that's gently used or off our wish list. So thetwigcares.com is our website.
Okay.
There's a wish list on there at all times. Sometimes we put special ones up on our social media. So Facebook is our big one. The Twig Cares is our handle on Facebook, but we'll do wish list Wednesdays. We actually recently put up a special wish list. We've had a unique opportunity to serve a group home of teen boys.
Oh, wow.
So this past Saturday, we had 14 teenagers, boys, all at once at the Twig. And then we're
That's
doing
a
it.
party.
Yeah, it is. We're doing it again this Saturday.
Are
so,
you really? That's amazing.
So what that means, though, if each of those kids is getting 10 items and you have 14 boys, that's a lot of stuff in one department going out. So we'll put out a wish list and just say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is how you can help us. These boys want Crocs and hoodies.
Yeah. Whatever the cool thing is at the time.
Yeah. So it makes it easy for our donors too to be like, this is the exact size we need and the exact item we need. You can buy it on Amazon, have it sent straight to our door.
Yep.
You don't even have to come bring it in.
It's so good.
So we try to make it as easy as we can. We tell those stories too of here's where your donations are going, exactly who they're serving. But Facebook, Instagram a little bit, and our website, you can see all of that information.
That's good for people to know. And I think the way you have streamlined it, to be able to go to the website and go, okay, I want to help and I'm going to dip my toe in things that you've mentioned. I can go in and I can just buy these few items, and it's a start. It's a movement towards meeting a need that is a big deal. It impacts, and it impacts my kids. It impacted your kids, things like that. So I think people even hearing that, it might seem, how it is when you're leading an organization. You've said it a million times, but I think I didn't even realize some of that. And my wife worked there. So like how easy it can be for people to participate with you. Now, you mentioned the fundraising and the things you need to pay the bills. I know that you have some pretty amazing events. Mm-hmm. I've had the privilege of getting to go to them. I know you just had one. I think you did, and then you got one coming. What do those look like? Beyond, after that, we'll talk more about how people can just be maybe monthly partners. I'm sure there's a host of different ways they can partner with you financially, but it's desperately needed, especially as you guys continue to grow. But walk me through, what's the next big event you have? How was the last one? What do those things look like for somebody that maybe is interested in that?
Yeah, so we do 3 main fundraisers throughout the year. So September, we do our Taste for the Twig here in Venice at the Venice Community Center. Super fun event, more casual. Restaurants donate small bites. You get to just sample lots of great food. And then we have a short program at that one just talking about what we're doing, how you can help. And there's a big auction at that one as well.
Oh, nice.
And then we do our Turkey Trot 5K. Always the Saturday before Thanksgiving. Yes. It sells out every year, so mark your calendars now. In May,
a big thing.
It is. Yeah. In May, it goes live.
Yeah.
Super fun event, but also just brings that awareness and we can raise funds. And then our biggest for the year is our gala. So the Fostering Love Gala will be held on February 1st, 2025 at the Grove in Lakewood Ranch. It's our, fancier event of the year, but it's a really wonderful night of an auction, a paddle raise, a dinner, but really hearing some really good stories, hearing that impact of what's happening at the Twig and just letting people have their way of finding a way to help, and usually financially, and you might win a trip to Africa or something along the way.
They have some cool things that they auction off. Now, anybody can come in and buy seats at this, correct?
Yes.
And partner with you to do that. Mm-hmm. What does it look like if I'm just I can't make those events, how do I partner with you? What does that look like for someone maybe just wanting to do day to day, month to month? What would that be? Yeah,
so on our website, there's lots of options for giving as well. So we have monthly donors who you can just set it up on our website, and every month it can be drawn from your account. You can do a one-time gift. People give from their donor-advised funds if you have those. There's lots of ways to do it, and I'm always happy to have a conversation with anybody to help walk you through all of that. But there's a lot of ways. And, whether it's $1 or it's $1,000, it makes a huge difference. The impact that we're doing on these kids matters. And so there's no gift that's too small or too big. We'll take them all, and they're all just making such a big difference for every one of these kids. We have donors that give $10 a month.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Amazing.
You're giving some underwear to kids.
Yep.
That's great.
Yep.
If you can give $1,000 a month, cool. You're probably going to help us pay some of our bills and be able to keep our overhead costs down. But no matter what it is, everyone's little piece in that makes a really big difference for us.
Yeah, we're blessed. Here at Lift Church, we partner through our Kingdom Builders with the Twig. It's one of our local partners. It's naturally, again, I'm part of it. So it's it is a gift to get to be able to be a part of those moments and to pour into financially. I think first off, I think it's what the local church is supposed to do in general, let alone something that's near and dear to my heart personally. As we're talking about this stuff, one of the things I wanted to, as we have some conversation, ask you is, we're talking about the overarch. We're talking about some of the business side of it, if you would. But our heart came out. I want to hear, is there a specific story or moment that marked you in this journey? Maybe it's personal in your own home that you had. You've mentioned that you get to be in some of those bio families' lives still. Maybe it's one kid, these boys. What stands out to you as something that is a story that's marked you, that could help somebody peek behind the curtain a little bit more of the heart of the twig?
Yeah, there's so many. There's so many stories, and it's always, it's interesting to see how God provides too. I can't tell you how many times we've had something happen where like, oh my gosh, this kid needs this crazy size shoe. Well, don't you know a donor showed up last week with that size shoe? I mean,
wow.
the stories are just unbelievable. But one of the things for me personally that's most impactful is, again, things you don't think about.
Yeah.
There's so many kids that want pajamas when they come in because they've never had pajamas.
Okay.
They're living in a home where whatever clothes they have on is what they sleep in. Having a luxury of pajamas is something that they don't even know.
Wow.
When we served this group home last week, there was a boy beelined in. First thing he said is, I want pajamas, and looked for pajamas. And again, it's something we take for granted, right? Like, so simple. We put pajamas on our kids every night. But those things matter a lot to them. We've had kids who sit back in our shoe area and we'll put on a pair of Nikes and sit on the floor and cry and say, but I never thought I would get a pair of Nikes. They never thought they were worthy of a pair of Nikes, but they can come in and get them. And a lot of that changing that thought process for these kids happens too. Like, you are worthy of these nice shoes, just like your peers. And then, a lot of these kids have had to take care of their siblings. So we've had kids we've seen who come in and they don't want anything for themselves.
Yeah.
They want to shop for their siblings.
Wow.
And there was one boy in particular that it took almost a year before he would pick things out for himself. Wow. And it really took our volunteers spending time with him saying, buddy, you deserve those shoes too. You deserve a shirt too. You're such a good brother, but you deserve these things too. Yeah. But my most impactful moment, I talked about how the clothing is so important, but the space is equally. So I was in there one day and we have a play area. When the kids are done shopping, they can play. And there was a little boy about 8 and we were just hanging out in the play area. He was done shopping and all of a sudden he looked up at our front door and he froze and he goes, oh my gosh, there's my sister. Well, him and his sister were separated in different homes and unplanned. They showed up at the same time on the same day. They sat at our coloring table and colored for 30 minutes. So they got their needs met, those tangible items. They were loved on by our volunteers, but then they spent time in a safe space together. The space is so important for these families. And we see that happen on purpose too. We had a little girl in our home who had 3 brothers. They were all in different houses and she was the youngest and they were very used to taking care of their sister. So what we did was we'd plan our visits at the Twig and her brothers would help her pick out items. And that's like a very okay way for them to take care of their little sister. They still shop for themselves.
Sure.
But they liked helping her because it felt like we're not in the same house as her anymore. I can't take care of her anymore, but I can help, make sure she's getting the clothing that she wants. Then we'd do fun things too. But there's so many special moments that, it's not just clothes. It's that atmosphere allows for so many things to happen. And just seeing those kids' attitudes change over time when they're seeing our same volunteers and they're starting to trust and they're starting to believe in themselves because people are believing in them. You really see some transformation. And we're so honored. We get invited to graduations, to adoption parties, to so many cool things because we get to be a part of their life.
Yeah, I think it's worthy of note. You guys are more than just the boutique, and that side of it is exceptional, but you become a part of their lives. And I think that shows the heart for you, the organization, your staff, your team. And I just, I'm sitting here, I'm choking up listening to you tell stories or trying not to cry. I'm an emotional guy anyway, so that just inevitably happens. But it's Christmas time. Yeah. So I'm buying things for my kids, and it's things that my kids deserve it. I love my kids. I'm going to spoil my kids from now until the Lord returns. But just when you start to think about kids not experiencing that.
Absolutely.
Things that, can become very common to some of us. Mm-hmm. And so we get lost on what others experience. And, you are right there in that moment, bridging that gap where a pair of Nikes, it seems common to my son that gets a new pair every time basketball season starts. Mm-hmm. This little young man's never experienced it. Yeah. But they get to experience it because of the Twig, and it's special, and then when you start talking about, siblings interacting with each other in the midst of those moments, I've had a sibling group that was separated. Mm-hmm. And you just, again, people on the outside of this, and I pray they're leaning into our conversation, they don't realize, and it marks kids. It does, and it's ways that you're coming in and taking some of the most challenging moments and just as a byproduct of your actual mission, ministering to a thing like siblings getting to see each other. You know, it's an indirect blessing that you didn't even realize that God takes those efforts and multiplies them into things that I think is extremely special. And for me, again, I see, and I'm sure people that are listening can do this. Like, just imagine your son or your daughter not getting some of those things that you constantly provide for them. It's not happening in certain situations, or it's hard for them because they've been removed and they don't get to have some of the things they used to have. And so I'm just thankful for you and what you're doing. It's if we were to pray for you, you are now the executive director. I want to pray for you personally. How do I pray for Nicole Britton and her family? How do I pray for the organization that you lead, that you've been gifted by God and called to lead this? What do you need in a practical, like if just two friends talking?
Yeah.
What would you say? Here's what I need. I know we need the funds. I know you need the volunteers, and we're asking people for that. And I think we need to close by giving them clarity on how to do that. But just as a heart to heart, as a friend, how do I pray for Nicole, and how do I pray for Executive Director Nicole?
Yeah. I think for me, it's looking to have Nicole's plans a lot. Whether that be
Are
with
you type A?
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay.
But whether that be personally or professionally, right?
Yeah.
Like I have all these plans for the twig. I have all these plans for these kids in my house. But at the end of the day, releasing those things
That's so
and
good.
just being open to God's plan for the organization and for, our family personally.
Wow.
Reminding myself to do that is sometimes hard, but that's what needs to happen. And so I could use prayers for that.
That is one of the best answers I've received.
Oh, great.
Very
Awesome.
transparent, so real. And just releasing control.
Yeah.
Because I talk to a lot of leaders. You're a leader. You're skilled. You're called to do that. And sometimes leaders have a tendency to want to control things. But you're saying, help me to have the trust in the Lord.
Absolutely.
That his will is better. And you've seen that happen and you know that. But sometimes we need a prayer for that.
Absolutely.
Exceptional. So Executive Director Nicole, how do I pray for the organization? What is something that, like, if you were to have a whole church of people praying for you, how do we pray for that organization?
I mean, I'll be honest and say financial blessings.
Amen.
Right? I mean,
Yes.
we're serving so many kids. There's so many more kids we want to serve.
Yep.
We're doing a lot of programs, but gosh, there's so much more we could do.
Yep.
So if we have the funds to do it, we can do it, and we want to do it and see where God's leading us.
Okay.
When those funds are coming in, we can do all kinds of stuff.
Which leads me to this question. We're on the cusp of a new year, and you're in a new role, getting to lead the direction and the vision of the organization. Is there any major goals that you have in 2025? Is there new things that you sense God leading you towards? You might not be able to share them yet, might be on the drawing board, but is there anything maybe you could share with us that we can pray over for you, the vision for the next season of what that looks like? Is there anything on the horizon?
Yeah, there is.
Okay.
So we started a new program fairly recently in the last year for relative caregivers, primarily grandparents and great-grandparents.
Okay.
So what we found is in the system right now, numbers are a little down when it comes to removals.
Okay.
Reason why is they're really trying to do placements in families, which sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it does. I like it.
Yeah, but
But
if there's not an actual removal and they're just placed with a family member, there's no funds for that family. There's no case management. There's a lot of resources that they're not getting.
wow.
So they're actually not eligible to shop with us even.
Oh, wow.
But we created a program for them so they can. So our new program is called Tribe. Once a month, we invite these caregivers in. We do a support group for them. We bring a speaker in to help find resources for them, and then they're eligible to shop for the kids.
That is
when they're home.
exceptional. That is
So-
exceptional.
It's a need we found out there, and we want to grow it.
Yeah, that is exceptional.
Thank you.
Yeah, so helping with the family placements that don't get access to certain resources like a normal foster placement would get is what you're tackling in 2025.
Yes.
I love that for you all and for what I believe it will do for the system in general.
Yeah.
Like, I think it is better for them to be in place with family if that's possible. Not always, but if it is, that's best. And so a way to support them and come alongside them as they're navigating, again, that season that they're in, you guys are meeting them in the midst of that. So here's what I'd like to do is just giving the people clarity. They can go to the website. I'd love for you to state the website again. Tell us, how do we follow you on social media? and just what would that look like for what you're needing right now? We need funds. We need volunteers. Just if you don't mind, give us that very clearly again to end our time. And then I'm going to ask you to pray.
Okay. You're asking me to pray.
I
Oh,
am.
putting me on the spot. So our website is thetwigcares.com.
Okay.
Facebook, The Twig Cares, very easy.
Yeah.
Our email address, info@thetwigcares.com. But on our website, it's all spelled out. So you can go to donors up at the top, and there's a drop down of all the ways you can help, whether that be volunteering, donating financially, going to our events, whatever it is you want to do. It's all listed very clearly on our website. But I am also available to talk. I tell people all the time, you want to talk about the Twig, you want to talk about foster care, you want to talk about adoption, reach out to me.
And what's the best way for them to reach or get a hold of you?
Nicole B@thetwigcares.com.
Okay. And they can
Send me an
directly
email.
get in touch
Get
with
right
you.
in touch with me.
And you go and you speak at a lot of different things. You go to other churches, you talk to other organizations. So if anybody hears this that would love to have you come in and give clarity to that, I pray that they step into those things. And just personally on a note, before I have you pray, I want to encourage everybody to be a part of these things. If you're looking for ways to get involved, and I believe everyone should in some way consider, how do I participate in foster and adoptive care, dipping your toe in, the Twig is a great starting point for that. It is a great starting point, whether they're giving financially, which, we're in that season, they're ending their year. I pray that they bless you all mightily, and I'm going to be praying for that. But also if they just want to maybe buy some Crocs for some teenagers,
Yes, we'll
then we would love for them to partner with you and do that. And so it's been a pleasure and a blessing to talk to you. There's always so much more we could talk about, and we probably will as time moves forward and you spend more time with us. But would you do me the favor, just kind of praying over this, and then we'll call it a day.
All right.
Yeah.
Father, thank you so much for the opportunity to come here and share with every every person that's listening to my voice right now that can just listen to the needs of the foster care community. Let their eyes just be opened, let their hearts be open to find their way to bless the life of a child in foster care, whatever that might be. Lord, I pray that you continue blessing the Twig so that we can keep blessing children. I pray that you keep blessing Lift Church and their hearts for helping our community in so many ways. Thank you for all of the opportunities that I've had personally, professionally, with the Twig, with Lift Church. We are blessed to be a blessing. Thank you, Lord.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Nicole. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.